Hello and welcome to another episode of Cake Fight Presents The Making Of. I'm writer-director-producer Paige Feldman, and this week, as every week, I'm taking you inside my process of making my debut feature film. We're going from idea to premiere in real time. So last week, I finished, finally, the draft of my script for my contained romantic comedy feature. This week, I'm relaxing. I haven't written anything, haven't looked at the script. As you can see, I have my blue light glasses on and a t-shirt, Fight on Trojans, and really haven't done much of anything with this project. But I'm here with you today because I probably should do a little bit more. And while there's not much I can do while I'm just letting my script marinate and rest, which is work on its own, what I could be doing to help get it ready for investors is write a logline. And I haven't been able to get myself up the motivation to do it yet. So I'm gonna do it live via screenshare with you. And the fun thing about this is that there are a ton of formulas for loglines out there that work really great for most films, but I found they're terrible for romantic comedies. But I have a method of sorts that I think works really well for romantic comedies. So I'm gonna roll those titles, and when we get back, I'm gonna turn screenshare on and show you what I mean, and also show you exactly how I write my loglines. So if you wanna steal this method, you're free to. All right, see you in a sec. And we're back. I just want to say I apologize in advance for the glare on my glasses that's going to be here, but I've been getting visual migraines lately, and wearing these babies makes it so that I can work and not have to worry about getting spots in my eyes that makes it so I can't see, and then head pain, you know, all the fun stuff. Anywho, for the uninitiated, a logline is a one-sentence summary of your script or your film that gives the basic details about it to anyone who is interested in hearing about what you've written. The elements that are usually in it are the protagonist, the antagonist, the inciting incident, the protagonist's goal, and the stakes, or what happens if the protagonist doesn't reach their goal. Now, if you want to learn how to write a logline, just Google it and see how to write a logline. There are 717,000 results. And each result is going to look something like this. When protagonist, inciting incident, they must complete their goal or stakes, something bad will happen. And the antagonist is going to fit into either the inciting incident or their goal, like the protagonist must do this before the antagonist, or the antagonist will be in the stakes, or this person is going to cause fire to rain down on the world. Something. Now, if you've never seen a logline before, you're probably like, okay, this formula is great, but what does that even mean? How does that even look in real life? And so I want to give you the logline for my most favorite movie of all time, The Silence of the Lambs, that is on IMDb. And I think it's a great example of a logline and how this formula can be used. It is this: a young FBI cadet, that is Clarice Starling, must confide in an sorry, while I type and just like sound out all the words. Incarcerated and manipulative killer to receive his help on catching another serial killer. I almost wrote cereal like the breakfast cereal, who skins his victims. The incarcerated manipulative killer is Hannibal Lecter. Another serial killer is Buffalo Bill. So if we're going to use the formula for this, let's just do this. So when an FBI cadet is assigned to speak with a manipulative serial killer, she must use his help to identify and capture a different serial killer, or a young woman will die. Like, it's not an ideal logline, but it shows you kind of how this formula translates into what is this movie about. So that's for The Silence of the Lambs. I'll write that down here. Now, I said that this formula doesn't work really well for romantic comedies, and to show you what I mean, I'm going to write out my log line using this formula for the film that I just finished writing. So, uno momento. Just differentiate from Silence of the Lambs. All right, so I just took about 2.5 minutes to write 3 different log lines in this formula right here for this romantic comedy, and they're all terrible. Okay, so there are a few problems with this logline formula for a romantic comedy. The first problem is that it assumes a singular goal, even if there are multiple protagonists. So there's this movie, Uncharted, that came out recently, where we have Tom Holland's character and Mark Wahlberg's character and a few other characters who are all going after the same set of buried treasure. I saw the movie, but I can't remember details about it because honestly I was like doing wedding planning stuff while it was on, so I was like 75% paying attention. But you could definitely write a logline for Uncharted using this formula, because even if you have 4 protagonists, they're all looking for the same thing. And if other people get it, that's the bad thing. In this romantic comedy, I have 2 protagonists who have 2 very different goals. And their only commonality is that they're in the same place together, reaching for those goals. So the 3 log lines I have are, first, this is about Ash. So when a food writer's grandmother passes away and he finds a bucket list of hers from when she was a teenager, he must complete the list before the 7-day mourning period is over or risk alienation from his family. His alienation from his family has kind of already happened. This isn't super accurate, but I couldn't think of any real stakes because his stakes are very internal. He feels like if he doesn't do that, maybe a better thing to say would be like, or risk ruining, or risk his grandmother's legacy being remembered incorrectly. Like, that might be a better way of saying it. But either way, like, this is not really what the story's about because it doesn't get into the romance. And for Mitch, the female lead, hers, when a failed songwriter gets accepted into grad school for a program she's passionate about, she has 1 week to write a song or risk living an unsatisfying and unfulfilling life. Like, yes, that is her story, that's her arc. This is a good logline for her arc, but the stakes are very nebulous. And the thing about this formula, and like the Silence of the Lambs one, a young woman will die. That's at stake. If Clarice Starling doesn't get help from Hannibal Lecter, Buffalo Bill is going to kill a young woman. She's going to die. Clear stakes. The stakes here are much more nebulous and fluffy. So then I decided to do a third one because there's no romance in either of these either. And that is, when 2 childhood sweethearts find themselves hiding out at the same desert house for different reasons, they must learn to work together and put their past differences aside or risk not achieving either of their goals. This is an accurate logline. It's not very detailed. It's not really compelling, honestly, though, because even though there is the romance kind of implied here with the childhood sweethearts, it doesn't show their antagonism really, and it also doesn't highlight the fact that, like, Ash is doing his grandmother's bucket list and Mitch is trying to write a song, and those are things that are going to be interesting, different, unique, and keep your attention about the story. So all of these are duds, and I knew they'd be duds because this formula is a fantastic formula for most films, but for a romantic comedy like the one that I'm writing that is along the lines of more mumblecore stuff, Blackbird by Mark and Jay, I don't know if it's Mark and Jay, Blackbird, Mark Duplass and Sarah Paulson, and kind of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, but over a longer period of time, and Before Sunset, those types of films where it's a lot of talking and conflict between people coming up while they're doing other things. Those are like the types of comps that I'm going for here. And this formula does not work for those. Okay, so we've agreed none of these loglines are working. This formula is great for most films, but not really for romantic comedies. So when I'm writing a logline for romantic comedies, what I like to do is think about the general themes of the story, the action where the story's taking place, the conflict between the two protagonists, the two romantic leads, because in a romantic comedy, the antagonism comes from each protagonist. They are each the other one's worst nightmare in some way. And so highlighting and spotlighting that. And then also finding ways to hint at the action to come, but keeping the romance center stage. And I think the easiest thing to do to show you what I mean is to show you an example of a logline that I've written after having contemplated my own thoughts about my own script. Now, this isn't for the contained romantic comedy. This is for my Passover set romantic comedy, Definitely Not Anymore, which is based on the true story of my great Aunt Maxine and great Uncle Carney's whirlwind romance, but updated into the modern era and set during the week of Passover. So super Jewish, super personal to me, and here is my logline. A failed artist and her colleague from hell, who are both in other relationships, fall for each other during the whirlwind week of Passover. It's a story about family, following your passion, and fish, gefilte or otherwise. So I start off with the antagonism between the two protagonists, a failed artist and her colleague from hell. Failed artist, and she doesn't like this other guy, so there's going to be a clash there. Even whether he likes her or not, it doesn't matter. He's making her life hell. And if he's making her life hell, he probably doesn't like her. Who are both in other relationships. There's a second layer of conflict there. So this is a conflict about the inevitable romance in the romantic comedy. And then fall for each other during the whirlwind week of Passover. There we go, spotlighting the romance, spotlighting the romance, full on, in the center. And then it's a story about family, following your passion, and fish, gefilte or otherwise. So those are the themes. We have family, we have following your passion, which if you pair that with the failed artist, you think, maybe she's gonna follow her passion. Is she gonna do art again? Spoiler alert, she does. And then fish. Fish does play a major role in this story. There's a lot of it. It's also a funny way to end the logline and to hint at the tone of this story. Hopefully that's something that makes you want to read, or hopefully soon at some point watch this film. So this logline for Definitely Not Anymore, I created it out of whole cloth without using a formula. But what I'm going to do now is kind of try to use this as a formula as I write my logline for this contained romantic comedy. Spotlighting the characters, the conflict between them, any additional conflicts that are happening, and hinting at the story to come with the theme. So now that you've seen the kind of logline I like to write for a romantic comedy, I'm going to do it again for this contained romantic comedy features. So talk to y'all in a couple minutes, my time, but like just a few seconds, your turn. Alright, so that took a little bit longer than 2 minutes, but I have something here that it's a little long, a little clunky, and probably will be shaped and changed more as I revise my script. But the important thing is I have 2 sentences that I can share with anyone who asks me, so what's this movie about? And I'm going to read them to you. Childhood sweethearts turned enemies, a people-pleasing songwriter and a fiercely independent food writer, spend a week in the same desert home. The songwriter to make a last-ditch effort at her career, and the food writer to complete a bucket list his now-dead grandmother left him. But their tasks turn out to be less important than the bond they forged through confronting their fears, failure and anonymity, and finding comfort in rituals old and new. The only thing I don't have here is the humor aspect, but I have childhood sweethearts turned enemies, so relationship and antagonism set up, people-pleasing songwriter and fiercely independent food writer. Again, the antagonism is set up because Mitch is a people-pleaser, Ash is fiercely independent. There can be some clashing between them because maybe Mitch keeps doing things to help out Ash, who doesn't really notice that she doesn't want to. There's some stuff there. And we also know that Mitch is a songwriter, Ash is a food writer, so we have some color about their character. They spend a week in the same desert home, the songwriter to make a last-ditch effort at her career, conflict and goal for Mitch, food writer to complete a bucket list, conflict and goal for Ash, and then their tasks turn out to be less important than the bond they forge, hinting at the romance through confronting their fears, failure and anonymity, and finding comfort in rituals old and new. And there's the theme of ritual. You know what? It's not great, it's not perfect, but it works. And having something is always better than having nothing. So, you know what? I'm proud of this logline, especially because I came up with it in about 5 to 7 minutes. And it's way better than any of these formulaic ones that actually don't fit the film that I'm making. So I've written a logline, hooray, and I hope that this has inspired you. If you have a script or a film or even a novel that you're working on and you want to write a logline for it, I'd love to see it. So drop it in the comments, whether it's the formulaic version, which formulaic doesn't mean bad, it's actually way easier. I wrote 3 of them in a third of the time it took me to write this one. Or the more ephemeral, nebulous one that... nebulous, not ephemeral, nebulous version that I wrote for my romantic comedy. Either type, drop it in the comments. I'd love to see it. For the next few weeks, I'll be away on my honeymoon, so while there won't be any updates on the making of, I will definitely have video content for you because I've stockpiled it. So every Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, that's when a new video drops. Thank you all so much for watching. I can't wait to read your log lines, and I'll see you next time here on Cake Fight Presents The Making Of. Bye. Thanks for watching.